The most common mistakes that I see when people are getting divorced is, number one, they don't put things in writing. When you are married, everything, absent a prenuptial agreement that says otherwise or a postnuptial agreement that says otherwise, when you get married, every asset you acquire while you're married is considered marital, and every debt that you incur is considered marital. So what ends up happening is people will go ahead and get divorced, and when they do the divorce paperwork, they say, I have no assets, I have no liabilities, we're good to go. And then they find out years later, and now the person has a new spouse, and now they know that they can go after you or go after prior assets that weren't really actually dissolved properly in the marriage because there was no paper, no document documenting what you guys verbally or orally agreed to. So the lack of the appropriate paperwork memorializing what you guys agreed to can lead to lots of mistakes, which leads to a lot of untangling, a lot more time, a lot more money, a lot more effort, and totally not worth it. Another very common mistake that I see is when it involves the children. And I love co-parents getting along. It makes me happy. It brings me joy to hear that two parents can put aside the fact that they are no longer together and focus on the children. However, when they do that, they're like, no, the paper can just say, we'll just see the kids whenever. We never disagree. And then a few months later, a few years later, new spouses later, they're coming back saying, we don't agree. And this is after fighting, battling. You're talking about holidays missed. You're talking about travel plans canceled. You're talking about just wrecking this child's life because you failed to put down an appropriate parenting plan, which you guys would probably call a custody plan, that delineates when you see the child, where you see the child, and all these other details that can be avoided, or all these different issues that can be resolved if it was properly documented and an appropriate parenting plan was put in place to avoid these things. Another very, very common mistake that I see is that people will listen to just about anybody but their attorney. They are going to social media, listening to attorneys in other states, listening to people who aren't even attorneys, friends, family. Every case is different. Your case is not going to move like anybody else's case. Your marriage is not going to work like anybody else's marriage, right? It is between all the facts and all the factors that are going on in your individual case is what is going to determine how it ends up resolving. And so it's very, very important, if you do have yourself a competent family law attorney, you listen to that attorney as opposed to listening to, frankly, everyone else. And one of the other problems that I see constantly over and over again is people not going with an attorney. They do it themselves and they end up making mistakes, or they go with someone who isn't an attorney. And while they are required by law to notify and state that, hey, I'm not an attorney and I'm helping this person fill out this paperwork, they rarely ever do. And even when they do, they can't get in trouble. And one thing about attorneys is we went to law school. We spent years of our life dedicated to this particular practice area to make sure that we can provide the best service to you, because this is your life. At the end of this, as much as I may want you to do something or I may recommend something to happen, ultimately, it's your life, your choice, your future. I want to make sure that you avoid all these mistakes and give us a call so we can help you. We love helping families create their new beginnings.